Hey YouTube, thanks for tuning in. In the last video I did called Narcissists Love to Possess You or Narcissists Try to Possess You, I mentioned that narcissists are always on the lookout for certain types of people that will be very useful for their goals and for their purposes. So those of you who have experienced narcissistic abuse on more than one occasion, this video is to kind of address and talk about what traits and characteristics are present in you that are attracting these people. So before I begin, of course, I always have to do a few disclaimers. This is not a victim blaming video at all. This video is to highlight what characteristics you possess that cause a narcissist to single you out in a crowd and track you like a heat-seeking missile. Because if you're not aware of the characteristics that you possess, you will not be able to put up your defenses. You don't recognize that these people are always hunting for you, but if you're not also aware that you are hunted, then you're going to keep getting entangled up with these people over and over and over again. The other disclaimer is, this is not a video to say that you should suddenly change all of these things about you, because these things that I'm about to list are kind of what make you a good person and what make you who you are. And the world needs more people like us, honestly. But these same characteristics that make us good people are also what draw narcissists to us. So let's just jump right in and talk about it, and then we'll debrief and hash it out in the comment section. So really, this whole video could be summed up with one statement. Narcissists are drawn to you because you're a nice person, period. But let's take nice and let's kind of break that down a little bit, and let's really dig in to what makes these people latch on to you specifically as opposed to someone else. So the first quality, you're a very sweet person, and that goes for men and women. Some people are naturally sweet people. They're naturally kind-hearted people. If you notice that when you go places like a restaurant or anywhere where customer service is involved and people tend to call you sweetie, I know that drives a lot of folks crazy in different parts of the country and world to be called sweetie, honey, sugar, baby, things like that. It's a kind of a southern thing, but I do know that it happens all over. But if people automatically naturally call you sweet, sweetie, sweetheart, you're probably a sweet person. That sweetness is like honey to the narcissist fly. They buzz right over to you because they see this person is very sweet, so they probably possess the other traits and characteristics that I need to run my narcissistic, game plan. So you're a very sweet person. You're not a naturally nasty person. And sweet people tend to kind of start out in childhood. So I'm sure you all know very sweet kids somewhere in your environment, very just sweet children. They don't have that anxious, nasty, little mean, impish bone in them. Just sweet kids. Okay. The next part of this is you're a very compliant person. You tend to follow the rules. You tend to do as you're told. You tend not to question authority. If a rule exists, it must exist for a reason, so you tend to follow those rules. You don't really make a fuss. You don't rock the boat much, okay? Even if you can kind of see that what's happening is not right or not really the best approach, you won't challenge it. You kind of go with the flow. You're very compliant. Narcissists need compliant people. They don't need people who are going to be asking a lot of questions, who are going to be putting up a lot of fight. They need people who very gently will just kind of go with what they're told. Very compliant, okay? And in some ways, very impressionable, okay? Number 3, they tend to make excuses. I say we because I've been the victim over and over and over again before I started getting better. And make a note to myself about what happens once you start getting better. So once I run through this list, we'll talk about that. But number 3, you tend to make excuses for bad behavior. So you are of the school of thought that all human beings are naturally good and that if someone is doing something bad, there must be a reason for it. And you can't fathom or process in your mind that someone is just wicked for wicked's sake. That's something that you can't accept. That's not acceptable to your mind. So you find a reason to kind of explain away or justify the behavior. So, and when a narcissist sees that you'll do that, they know that they've got a prime candidate on their hands. So you could take, the most wicked person in our society right now, lay out all the things that they've done, and a person who a narcissist loves will be like, well, I bet they had a bad childhood, or I bet they were abused when they were younger, or maybe they were bullied. They'll make excuses for the behavior, and therefore the behavior can continue because there's a reason for it. Okay? So people who narcissists are attracted to tend to make excuses for that bad behavior. Number 4, you don't question the status quo. So this kind of goes back into the compliance piece. Things are the way they are, and you are not going to be the one to change them. You don't want that kind of attention on yourself. You don't want that kind of bad PR. You don't want that kind of negative publicity. So you are not going to be the one to change or challenge the status quo. Narcissists love you because that means that whatever they've set up, you'll go along with it because you're not a boat rocker. Because being a boat rocker is not fun, and we'll get into that. It's not fun. It's not a fun side of the coin. It's much easier to not rock the boat, but sometimes the boat you're not rocking is actually sinking. So, but we'll get into that. Okay? Number 5, you don't really have a firm position on anything. If someone asks you your opinion about something, you're one of those wafflers. So you go, well, maybe it's this, but maybe it's that. Well, sometimes it's this, but sometimes it's that. Well, some people do this, but some people do that. So like you never take a firm position on anything. So that what that means is your boundaries, your viewpoints, your opinions are very, very flexible. And when you have flexible opinions and flexible boundaries, the narcissist can very easily push those boundaries in or flex them to their agenda and what they want because you're not firmly rooted. Okay? You're like a flower that can be repotted anywhere because your roots aren't strong. Your roots haven't really taken hold and keep you firmly rooted in the ground. Yeah, you can uproot any flower, but some flowers are going to be harder to uproot than others. Okay? But you really don't take a firm position because you're afraid that if you take a firm position one way or the other, you're going to upset people. And people who narcissists love are always afraid of upsetting other people. They never want to do that, ever. That's the last thing on their list. Okay? So similar to that, that kind of takes us into number 6. So you don't like to upset people, which means that you're someone who aims to please. You like to be the one that makes everyone happy. Whatever someone wants from you, you try your best to give it to them because you know it makes them happy. And in some small way, you feel like it's ingratiating yourself to them, putting you in their good graces. So you're a pleaser. You're a people pleaser to the detriment of yourself. So again, going back to the disclaimers in the beginning of the video, a lot of these traits and qualities, again, the world needs more of. Don't we need more people trying to make others happy? Like if I'm concerned about my neighbor's happiness and my neighbor is concerned about my happiness, at least between those two neighbors, the world should be a better place. So if you can imagine if everyone was concerned with everyone else's happiness, overall the world might be a better place. But people pleasers in this sense, they're concerned with everyone else's happiness to their detriment. So you're concerned about their happiness, but they're not concerned about yours. And that's the problem. There's the imbalance. Okay? Narcissists are looking for someone who's comfortable with that imbalance because they're not going to reciprocate much after they've looped you in. Okay? Similar to that, you have a tendency to put yourself last in all situations. All situations, you put yourself last. Now again, does the world need a little bit more of that? Yeah, I think so, maybe. The world needs a little bit more people who will say, you know what, you go first, you eat, I'll eat second. Like, just more that neighborly, treat others as you like to be treated kind of behavior. Yes, we need that. So I'm not saying that now, since you put yourself last, you should suddenly start putting yourself first in all situations, because that's what narcissists do. Narcissists put themselves, it's almost like this list that I'm reading is the antithesis of the narcissist. So it's the 180-degree separation from this person, and we all know opposites attract. So you guys are on two opposite ends of the scale. It's like a perfect balance. It's perfect. Okay, the narcissist is not sweet. They're usually pretty nasty. They're generally not very compliant people. They kind of carve out and do whatever they want to the detriment of others. You make excuses for bad behavior. Narcissists are the one doing the bad behavior. You don't question the status quo. The narcissist sets the status quo. You hold no firm position. The narcissist has an extremely firm position, which is overtaking you and making you part of their supply. You aim to please. The narcissist aims to be pleased. You put yourself last. The narcissist puts themselves first in all situations to the detriment of others. Okay? Let's keep going. Number 8, you believe in cliches. And I've done a video called Dangerous Cliches. Cliches are dangerous because they shut down thinking. They make it to where you don't think anymore. You don't critically think. You don't examine the problem beyond the surface level, because the cliche has supposedly solved all the problems and answered everything that can be answered about that issue. So here's an example. You tell yourself things like, nobody's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. We all deserve forgiveness, right? And you tell yourself this while you have a narcissist in your life who's continually being imperfect, continually making mistakes that hurt you or hurt others around you. And you write it off by saying, well, nobody's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. We all deserve forgiveness. Well, how many times, how many times can someone take your money? How many times can someone belittle you? How many times can someone discard you before you say, you know what, this is not okay. This is not right. You can still extend your forgiveness and have nothing to do with that person, but you don't have to allow someone to operate in your life in a way that causes you ongoing detriment. Will we accidentally hurt each other from time to time in this life? Yes, we will. We'll all do it, not on purpose. Those of us who aren't narcissists won't do it on purpose, but it happens. So, but what I'm talking about is the continual pattern and repetitious cycle of hurt, pain, discard, pull you back in, hurt, pain, discard. Like that's not okay. And yeah, nobody's perfect, but some of us are out here making choices. So it's not about perfection, it's about the choices that they're making and how they're choosing to treat the people in their life. Okay? Everybody makes mistakes, yes they do, but some people make choices. So you have to begin to differentiate between a mistake and a choice. All right? Some people will choose incorrectly the first time. They'll make a bad decision, but after that first time, it's no longer a bad decision, it's a choice. Okay? So those are some of the 8, and I might think of more as I'm talking. But let's talk about what happens as you start to cure yourself from this. And by the way, there's a ton of literature out there on codependency and those traits and why those traits sync up and align with those with the different antisocial personality disorders. There's tons of literature out there, and I had a really good book, and I can't remember what the name of it is, but if I do, I will put it in the description box. But it goes into extreme detail about the type of person that narcissists and other type of disordered individuals are attracted to. So this is like a high-level list. But the research is out there, so if you're interested in this, definitely go do that research. But let's talk about what happens after you get better. Once you start to recover from this, and I'll actually just kind of go down the same list. When you're recovering, you're still sweet. Your sweetness doesn't necessarily go away. What changes is you're sweet with boundaries, okay? And a lot of folks, especially those who struggle with codependency, don't see how the two can exist in the same airspace. How can you be a sweet person and also have boundaries? How does that happen? It can happen. And it's a beautiful thing when it does happen. So let's keep going to kind of talk about what that looks like. Compliant. When you're recovering from being overly codependent, your compliance levels start to drop. So you will comply to the extent that, to the extent of the law. So you're not going to go out breaking laws now. You're going to comply. You're still going to stop at red lights and stop signs. You know what I mean? Whatever is illegal in your city and state, you're not going to suddenly run out and do that. But what I mean is you're not going to be a person who just says yes to everything now. Invitations and different things and requests that people make of you, you actually start to feel a little bit better about saying no. You're not automatically compliant with these people. Now, once you start saying no and exercising your no, it really brings out the worst in narcissists. So I don't want to give you a false sense of security in thinking that as you start to change, these narcissists are suddenly going to start being nicer to you. They were nice to you when you were the first list. Sweet, compliant, you make excuses, all that. That's when the narcissist is going to be sweet to you because you're being everything they want you to be. When you start telling them no is when you're actually going to bring out the worst of their behavior. So just be prepared for that. Don't be surprised by that. You should expect it, actually. Number 3, making excuses for bad behavior. When you heal, you start to look at bad behavior for what it is. You start to look at people's choices and say, you know what? This person made a decision to do something that is going to cause me pain. And they know it causes me pain. It's not that they're unaware. They know, and they chose to do it anyway. That is bad behavior. That was a conscious choice, and you can no longer make excuses for that type of stuff. What you have to do from that point is decide what you're going to do. Are you going to stay in the situation and fight it out and long suffer and try to make it better, or are you going to start planning different exit strategies? That's what you have to do now, but you can no longer make excuses for people's bad behavior that causes hurt and pain, okay? Number 4, you don't question the status quo. So this goes back into the compliance thing. When you get better, you start to question it. You start to say, you know what? I don't know if that policy or that procedure is really helping people. I don't know if doing that this way in this family is actually helping this family. You start to challenge what is. And again, remember, the narcissist is very rooted because the narcissist set up the status quo. So when you start to question it, when you start to push up against that status quo, oh, it's going to get ugly. So be prepared for that. But you have to have solid, firm reasons for why that status quo is not okay. If it's just kind of wispy and in a gray area, the narcissist is gonna crush you down. They're gonna wipe you out because you're not rooted. But if you're rooted in why that status quo is not okay, and you can speak to it and you can articulate it, you can expect the worst behavior out of that narcissist because they set the status quo up. Okay? Previously, you had no firm position. Now you're starting to develop your positions. You're starting to develop your boundaries. You're starting to craft out and carve out who you are, what you stand for, what you like, what you don't like, what you will tolerate, and what you won't tolerate. You're a person with boundaries, and believe it or not, you can still be very sweet and have those boundaries. It is possible, okay? It just takes practice. It takes a lot of practice because when you're first trying to assert yourself, you're going to mess up sometimes. You're going to come across as the B word, or, you know, whatever the male equivalent of the B word is. You're going to come across as those things when you're first trying to figure it out. Don't let your initial mishaps discourage you from continuing to redefine your boundaries. Because again, remember, the name of this channel is Permission to Exist. A lot of these people have wiped out the belief that we even have a right to be here, that we even have a right to be alive, that we have a right to have thoughts, preferences, opinions. They have wiped that out. This channel is trying to grant you that permission to exist. You are allowed to exist. You are allowed to be a human being. You're allowed to be a person. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to define who you are and craft out who you are. And these narcissists and other people like them have done an amazing job of making us feel like we have no right to even existence. Okay? So boundaries really are kind of your existence. You're tracing out your existence in the world, and you have a right to do that. So as you start to craft these boundaries out, they're not going to like it because they're accustomed to you falling over, like dominoes. They just tip you and you just fall. Your whole agenda, your whole plan, everything about you just falls and caters to them and bends to their will. So when you start to not bend, they're going to push harder, 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 harder. So be prepared for that. Don't be surprised by it. Okay? Number 6, you aim to please. Now, you're not going to suddenly become a person you're not going to suddenly become a narcissist, basically. Now you don't want to please anybody, only yourself. That's what narcissists do. You still please people. It's our duty to each other to be kind to one another. What changes about you is you don't please others to your detriment. So, for example, a lot of people are broke, not because they don't have enough money, but because they say yes to too many different things. Yes to the baby shower, yes to the wedding, yes to the bridal shower, yes to the family reunion, yes to the girls' trip out of town to Vegas for 3 days, yes to this, yes, you say yes to everyone to your detriment, and you're in debt up to your eyeballs because you're trying to make everyone not mad at you. Because what if you did say no to the baby shower, no to the bridal shower, no to the family reunion? They'd turn on you, right? What's wrong with you? What's going on with you? Are you in trouble? Are you on drugs? There's going to be all kinds of stories that they tell themselves for why you're not participating with them. But the simple answer might be, if I keep up this lifestyle with you guys, I will go broke. I'm already broke. Trying to keep up with you guys and this is what keeping up with the Joneses means. That's why I like to explore cliches, because cliches, when people hear keeping up with the Joneses, they think of one of two things. So Joneses is either a literal couple, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, or the Joneses can also be like an adjective for the times, right? I don't know if adjective, noun, I don't know, whatever. But it's something that describes the times. But what keeping up with the Joneses really is you're trying to keep up with every request that somebody is making of you. Come here, come there, come to the picnic, come to the boat, come to the beach, come to the to the 2-year-old's birthday party, come here, do this, do that, come here with me, do this with me. And everything costs you money. Everything just about costs you money. So it's like over time, that causes a detriment. Now, if you're very well off and you have the money to do those things, do them. That's what life is for. Enjoy life. You'll hear me say this a lot. You just can't do it to your detriment, okay? Because when the smoke clears and you're looking at your bills and you go, wow, I don't have any money. Can you call up all these people who've invited you here, there, and everywhere, and you went so you didn't make them mad? Can you call them up and ask them to help you out with a bill? Probably not. They're going to be like, oh, oof, I don't really have it either. Yeah, they don't have it either because they're busy doing the same thing that you're doing. But we're all out here playing make-believe, pretending that, if we just keep saying yes, people won't be mad at us and then we'll be accepted. So your desire to aim to please will shift. You will say yes when yes really is the answer. When you've taken everything into account, you looked at your schedule, you looked at your bank account, you considered your energy levels, and if the answer is yes when all those things clear, then the answer becomes yes. Now, some of you listening will go, well, God, that sounds like a really miserable life. It sounds like you wouldn't end up doing anything, or that you wouldn't have a social life. To some extent, that is true. But what's worse, having a social life that's not the greatest, but you still have enough money to eat and pay your bills and be comfortable, or having an amazing social life, but every single day you're worried about how you're going to eat, how you're going to put gas in your car, how you're going to do this and that, but you have a great social life. So you see the trade-off? Anyway, I'm digressing way down the rabbit hole on something else. Number 7, previously you put yourself last. As you heal, you're going to become more and more comfortable not necessarily putting yourself last, okay? So instead of being the last in line to eat, you might be third from the last, And then maybe the next time you might be second from the first. But the point is, you don't consider yourself the bottom anymore. You realize that you are important too. You have value also. You have a right to sometimes be first. You know, you're not going to be self-centered and selfish and impose yourself on the world, but you have a right to be first sometimes. You don't always have to be last. You really don't. So as you get better, you're going to start being more and more comfortable saying, you know what, I can step up. I don't have to just fall back and let everyone else go first. I can jump in sometimes. And it takes practice, especially when you're accustomed to bottoming yourself out. But put yourself second to the last, then third to the last, then fourth to the last. Just practice moving yourself up a little bit, because you are important. We all have to take turns. Sometimes we'll be first, sometimes we'll be the middle, and sometimes we'll be last. But we all have to take turns, okay? So take your turn being first, take your turn being in the middle, and then take your turn being last. But don't always bottom yourself out and put yourself last. And finally, as you heal, you start to use cliches less. You start to critically think more. You start to think beyond everything you've been taught, and you start to think about what makes sense, what's right for the world, what's right for humanity right now. You know, this nobody's perfect, everyone makes mistakes, and all this nonsense is not getting us anywhere. It has completely watered down the world, and we are watching some of the greatest criminals of all time run the world because we have made a million excuses for them. And they love it. They know that a lot of them are untouchable and they can do no wrong, because they know that there are so many in society who have every excuse in the book for their bad behavior. Every excuse in the book for their bad behavior. So they continue on with the bad behavior. Why wouldn't they? It's working for them. So they're going to continue on. So you start to think beyond cliches. You start to think more critically. It's almost like the scales fall off your eyes a little bit, and you start to understand how you ended up in that position. That's why I do a lot of videos called How We Learn to Invalidate Ourselves. And I notice that they don't get a lot of views, and I'm starting to think it's the way that they're titled. Because I think a more appropriate title would be How We Learn to Not Trust Ourselves. How we learn to not trust our voice. Because that's really what it is. When you invalidate yourself, you're learning not to trust yourself. And that's what a lot of cliches do. Cliches neutralize whatever opinion you had and teach you to trust the cliche and not your opinion. Oh my goodness. Oh, that's my timer. Cliches teach you not to trust your opinion and to kind of lean on the cliche, lean on the common knowledge, lean on the common understanding that everyone's agreed upon, and then you'll be okay. But look where that's gotten us. Really take a critical look at your city, state, country, region, origin, part of the world. Take a critical look and say, have we, by extending these cliches, created a better world or a worse world? And I honestly believe we've created a worse world. We brought everything down to the middle, and from the middle we seem to just be going further and further into the low, or into the bottom or whatever. But yeah, so that's this video. Those traits that make you a prime candidate and prime target for a narcissist do not change who you are, my kind-hearted people, my sweet people. The world needs you. The world needs so much more of you. Do not change that. The only thing you really need to alter is your boundary and your positions, and start feeling more confident in your own voice. Start trusting in that voice and what you're hearing yourself tell you, and do not allow someone to tell you how you feel or tell you that your thinking is incorrect. And if your thinking is incorrect, they need to guide you to correct thinking with actual proof. You know, not their opinion. Their opinion is not necessarily correct thinking. How did they reach their opinion? So they need to kind of give you more. If your thoughts are off, then teach me and show me how that they're off so I can correct them. All right. So thank you so much for listening, you guys. I hope you have a wonderful week. And as always, I grant you the permission to exist, and take care. Bye-bye.